My first job was a summer job at 16 during summer break at a dairy farm. I absolutely hated it there, and it made it harder for me to find the motivation to even try finding work again when the time came. I don't really remember how I was first referred to the job, but the following summer, I ended up working as an office assistant for a self-employed photographer. My parents knew her because she used to be a member of their church, and my sister attended her 4-H program when she had it. By that time, her health had begun to take a hit, as she claimed it was a mixture of things from chronic Lyme to fibromyalgia. I had also been warned by my parents that she was a little off. She was very religious and claimed to have had real encounters with demons, even participated in a few exorcisms. The job basically required me to do a lot of data entry, as well as help prep her photos with minor touching up and the addition of her company watermark before uploading them to a site where customers could browse them and then pick which ones they wanted to order. She primarily photographed horse events, dressage, stadium, and cross-country jumping, and for the first several months my job stayed in her living room, which was basically my office space at the time. Eventually, I was talked into tagging along at shows where she trained me as a photographer, and soon I was shooting at the events along with her. It was boring work, I won't lie. I'm not a horse person, but things didn't get weird until a year later when I learned the hard way it was not her that I needed to worry about. She had 2 sons, one who was out of state and the other who was in the Navy. The latter of the 2, a guy called Nate, I had only heard small things about. He was somewhere on the autism spectrum, but she was never clear on what exactly his diagnosis was. She believed firmly he was vaccine injured and that all his oddities could be traced back to vaccines. When he finally returned home, I met him for the first time while working in her living room. He seemed like a nice guy. A little odd, but not concerning. He was obsessed with movies, and being a bit of a movie buff myself, whenever he would venture to the living room and strike up a conversation, it would always be about whatever movies we were into or were excited to see. I should point out here that I was only 18 by this point, and he was in his mid-30s. At some point, he got it in his head that I was interested in him, and though he never said anything directly to me, I had to find out about it from my parents. My mom worked as a secretary at her church, and Nate knew it. One afternoon, Nate showed up at my mom's desk and started gushing about me. My mom was beyond uncomfortable, as was the pastor who happened to overhear it. And when I got home that night, she told me what had happened and suggested I make sure not to lead him on. I was completely baffled because I hadn't done anything. We never even discussed the possibility of doing anything together. A couple years later, I had moved out, and my boss's company had closed and I was working someplace new. I was friends with both my boss and Nate and around that time I was finally coming out as an atheist, something I couldn't do when I was still living at home. One night, my old boss messaged me asking about a ring I had on my finger. It was a black ring with a white solid star in the middle of a black circle. Already knowing where she was going with this, I told her it was just a ring. She started accusing me of wearing a pentagram because she didn't know what a pentacle was, and that I was promoting. I tried several times to explain to her that not only was it not that symbol, but that also paganism has nothing to do with it in any ways. But she refused to listen, so I just ignored her. The next morning, I had a message from Nate telling me I needed to come to his church with him. I told him no, and the messages I received back gradually grew angrier and angrier. I went ahead and blocked him and her, deciding I was done with both of them. Then he started showing up at my workplace. He would always search through the store until he found me, and then once he did, he would corner me and not stop talking to me no matter how many times I tried to dodge him or tell him I needed to get back to work. Eventually, the managers caught on and started intercepting him whenever he showed up. I wasn't making enough to pay the rent with that job, so I had to take up a second one. Within a week of working my second job, which was in a different town, he showed up there too. This time I told the managers outright who he was, and after that, every time he showed up, I was allowed to hide in the back room behind a locked door while they sped his order along and got him out. During one of those many encounters while I was hiding in the back, one of the managers was back there with me, inputting employee time punches into the computer while both of us heard Nate shouting in our direction. "I know you remember me." That was the last straw for them, and they told him his business was no longer welcome there. They stopped showing up at my other job as well for a while, which was a relief. Fast forward to a few years later, I was getting used to not having to look over my shoulder every shift or check the parking lot for his truck. Then one day, he reappeared. He was browsing a section I was walking past when he spotted me, and got his deer-in-the-headlights look. I made a beeline to the break room because just seeing him made me scared. After that, he started showing up regularly, and what happened next made me regret not speaking up. It was bound to happen eventually, but one night he managed to catch me while I was at the customer service desk. He approached me and said hi, and I immediately started to look for someone to signal over so I could make a break for it. But before I could say a word, he said something that made me feel sick. "How's your little girl doing? She's 3 now, right?" I looked at him, horrified. I had him completely blocked from all my social media. I had his number blocked. I was living at a new address, and I had not seen or spoken to his mother since she confronted me about my ring. I had not told either of them I was a parent now, or that I was married, and I was not friends with anyone who knew them. But he knew. "How's your husband doing too?" he asked when I didn't answer. He's good, man," I said, trying to reinforce the idea that I was not available to him and that I had no desire to have anything to do with him. "Really? Where does he work?" At this point, I felt like I was going to pass out. Thankfully, another employee approached just to gather some reshelves, and I got out of there. As I was leaving, he called out behind me. "I'll see you again. We'll talk. We'll go out and do something together." "We will." I reported him to the managers, telling them everything about the encounter, including all the information he had on me and my family that he should not have had. They were able to pull up his face on CCTV. While I had not heard anything, I'm guessing one of them finally managed to approach him because I hadn't seen him since. This has been going on for 10 years, and I want it to finally be over. If he shows up again, I'm going to call the police, but I'm seriously hoping it never comes to that. I just want him to stop. A couple of years ago, I spent most of my time skating. I didn't have many friends I could skate with, so I was always on the lookout for new friends to skate with. There was this really friendly guy at the skate park who seemed really motivated on making new friends and making somewhat of a skate crew. He was really motivated on getting skate clips and photos to put on social media. We got along, and he was really friendly, so I figured why not network with a new friend to skate with. I gave him my number, and he seemed perfectly normal at first. He hit me up a few days later, and I picked him up and we skated. The whole time, he still was completely normal and cool, nothing suspicious or strange at all. I dropped him off and everything was chill. A couple of days later, while I'm at school, he texted me asking if I wanted to skate. I was busy and didn't reply. Within an hour, he sends me multiple texts saying something like, "Why aren't you answering me? What did I do? And I'm sorry." I said screw it, and that night asked him to skate. I know that sounds really stupid, but I thought maybe just on my previous interaction that he was on some sort of spectrum of autism. Even though this may have seemed like a sketchy decision to hang out with him, the whole time we hung out, he was completely normal. He was the same friendly, motivated guy I met. However, after I dropped him off, things got worse. A few days later, the same thing happened where he texted me, I got busy, and he blew up because I didn't respond to him. However, this time I didn't reply at all that day or night, and this set him off even more. He sent me hundreds of texts over the next week, going from aggressively clingy, as seen before, I guess that's the way to describe it, to completely delusional. We met when I was 19, but he texted me delusional crap saying, "Remember when we were kids and you'd come over and we'd hang out? You'd have your shirt off and we'd play." I felt sorry for this guy. I knew he was a good guy with a good heart, but he just suffered from serious mental illness, it seemed. I just wish he had more people in his life who could help him control his issues. Later, he started calling me over and over again. I have hundreds of voicemails from him, and the creepiest thing about the voicemails is that they are all silent. He would call my phone and just sit there silently, leaving voicemails where I could hear him breathing or hear a fan in the background. This went on initially for a few months. I thought he lost my number or forgot about me. But then a few more months after this all died down, he started calling again, but under an unknown number, so I couldn't block him. This happened off and on for about a year. There was one incident where someone came to the house, went through our gate, vandalized our front yard. We're not sure if it was him or not, but after that we installed cameras. That was the worst it got. Mostly he called on and off for a year. There was one instance where he used his mom's phone. I believe it was his mom's phone because the text read, "This is Justin's mom. Justin wants to know why you won't talk to him." back before he started calling under unknown again. I replied to the text asking if Justin was okay and saying he needed help. Then he texted me from his phone saying, "Don't bother my mom." This cooled down after about a year ago. I'm not sure what happened to him, but I hope he got the help he needs and is doing okay.